All right, so my talk today is Designing for Everyone, the craft of picking or killing a concept. And like a lot of the times when you're designing something, this is actually my first iteration. I'm usually behind my computer or with users designing or talking. So putting together a presentation, this is my first iteration. You kind of go down a path usually on your first iteration. It's always tough to kind of get away from that. So my path today is 8-bit illustrations. That's going to be throughout this presentation. And they're called IotaCons. It's really kind of fun. Do I have a clicker here? All right. So this is everyone. And, and to take a look, kind of spot some really fun characters. There's actually TV shows and movies, a whole set. We'll maybe do a little trivia afterwards to see if you guys can recognize. So there's conventional wisdom, or the saying that if you try to design a product for everyone, you'll make no one happy and everyone will be unhappy. And I guess that is true if you're designing for this crowd and not really identifying specific people in the crowd. And but I think it's a little bit deeper to that saying. Designing for everyone is ultimately a poor product. And I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into that. Now here, more 8-bit illustrations. Look at the magic potions. The magic potions are representing features. And the paint buckets, if you've been in Photoshop, are representing kind of the design implementation of a feature. Or a friend who saw this presentation yesterday said a graduation cap, depending on how you see it. But let's get back to this crowd. Designing for everyone. Well, you may not necessarily be designing for everyone, but you are designing for a lot of different people. And you don't always just have one kind of persona, but you have a lot of different audiences. And so I work at Evernote, and what's really challenging being a designer at Evernote is everybody uses our product in so many different ways. Do you need to remember something? Do you need to remember something? You're using Evernote. What do you need to remember in Evernote? Well, it's very different depending on your profession or what you do. Now, there are some commonalities, but what keeps us kind of sane every day is really putting ourselves in different users' shoes, and everybody uses it differently. So you kind of clump this many people you're designing for together, and then there's your business. So you have a team, you have goals that your business is trying to accomplish, and you're designing for those goals. Then you have your users, and you have your partners. Pop quiz, can anybody recognize who that character is? No. Gus Fring from Breaking Bad, who was a very good partner for Walt. So what are the different needs of these audiences you're designing for? Well, let's kind of start off with the business. Well, the business is looking for users. Acquire users, retain users, engage users, and ultimately make money. So an example at Evernote, actually, acquisition. I'm the lead designer on Android, so I'm going to be using Android examples. This is our initial sign-up screens. A lot of people download Evernote through app stores, and we got to get them into the app. Well, a lot of people drop off even before signing up for an app. So acquisition here is really important. Retention, we actually have widgets on Android are really popular amongst Android users. And we have this customizable widget over here that if you can customize and fit on your home screen, and it's not on your second screen or your third screen, you're more likely to come back to the app. Engagement, this is actually our note composer. This is where you edit and create notes. And so this is one point of engagement that users are going to be experiencing a lot of times. And then revenue. We need to make money as well, and we have a premium service. On the user side, what you're really designing for is, well, users love being faster, better, happier. Now that means different things for your company, for Evernote. In Evernote's example, being faster is really being more productive. Being better is, well, if you actually forgot something and you're like, where did I put that? And you look in your Evernote and it's there, you're better. Or we're really enabling people to have this kind of backup brain that makes them superhero, a lot more powerful than they were without it. And then happier is kind of a fuzzy metric, but ultimately if you're not happy going into a product, it's not really good. And one example is, I really like MailChimp. It's kind of a fun example. They make you happy when you go in. Little monkey in the top right corner gives me a quote or tells me hello in different languages, I think. I can't remember exactly. But for us, we have different users. And this is an example of Lauren. She collects recipes and shares shopping lists with her family. We have Rebecca, and she's a traveler, and she keeps travel plans, maybe actually documenting her journey, maybe journaling, a lot of different use cases. And so when thinking about how people use Evernote, it's not just kind of one persona that I have, that I've kind of aggregated all these common things, but it's a lot of different people. We have comedians using, we have teachers, we have musicians, office workers, politicians, and travelers. Pop quiz. Office worker, that's probably an easy one. Right? Can you get the one on the bottom, the traveler? Indiana Jones, how do people know that? I don't know. And then more obscure at the top. Portlandia, there we go. So, Fred Armisen might be walking into, a hipster cafe in Portland, and all of a sudden get an idea for his show. He needs to pull out his phone quickly to jot that idea down. That's kind of how he writes. But a teacher like Walt, a chemistry teacher, he's got lots of crazy things that he's got to write down. Might be a little bit more in depth, might be more on his laptop or on the web. Musicians might actually be all of a sudden want to quickly record a chord or a verse that they just thought of and want to put that in. So they're using Evernote in very different ways. And if I just think of one persona, I'm not really going to be thinking about how these people are actually using the product. Let's go back on to Gus's side. He was a great partner for Walt, and you have partners that you're designing for as well. This is extremely important, actually, in the Evernote use cases. You can think of partners in different ways, but we actually think of app stores as our partner. Because working with them, they have, Apple only wants to keep people on their platform, acquire users, retain users. Android wants to do the same thing. When they have something really cool on their platform and the other platform doesn't, that's great for them. That's great for the product. That's amazing there. So we actually have to design for our partners because we get a lot of acquisition of users through App Store promotions. And actually, if you're editor's choice, if you're staff pick, if you're best app of the year, you're going to get a lot of users. We get a huge spike. So designing for, in my case, I'm actually designing for Google editors at times. And they're a potential, actually they're a really important audience for me. But you're also designing for time, which is really an interesting thing. You forget that time constraint is really important in this whole process. And you have all these players. You have your business goals, you have your user goals, you have your partner, and then you have time that really, external deadlines, resources that come into a factor. And that's going to change your design process as well, depending on the time that you have. So let's get back to the magic potions and the graduation caps. A lot of different features, a lot of different ways you can implement that feature, how you can design that feature. How do you really narrow it down to one direction to go with? So you really got to get back to your goals. So is it engagement? Is it retention, acquisition? I'm going to take revenue as an example. That's actually something we're focusing on at Evernote right now. And let me actually stop for a second. What size companies am I talking to? Put your hands up if you're one person. Okay, 5 people? All right, 20? 40? Okay, a little bit bigger. Over 100? Oh, okay. So Evernote actually right now is about 300 people. So we still feel like a startup, but I don't know how you would classify that. We're a hyper-growth company as well. So some of the examples I'm going to be giving, that's why we're focusing on revenue right now. We're at 35 million users, a couple million on Android itself, and so really big point now is trying to make money. But while you're making money, you also still have to align that with the user goals. And in this case, I'm going to say find something faster is kind of a goal that you have. And when you're making money, when you're trying to make money, you don't want to interrupt or sacrifice some of the benefits that users have of the current product. And we have a lot of free users. And in trying to promote our premium service, we don't want to actually break existing flows that they have right now, like finding something faster. But then time also is going to determine how that big set of features narrows down. And so maybe we only have a week. Maybe there's a promotion going out that we have to get a release in for. So we kind of have already these variables that will narrow down that big set of features and ways we can implement those features. And then there's partners, but I'm not going to go into too much detail on partner needs. So you've kind of narrowed it down. You have like a smaller set based off of all these different variables. And let's say 3 features and a couple ways you can actually approach that feature. So you have to design that out. You have to put out concepts, when we've had talks already about low fidelity, high fidelity prototypes. You got to get something out there and in front of your audiences. And so sometimes when you're dealing with your team or your business, you have to work with not just concepts, but also link that back to product metrics. What's happened in your product previously, and how does that relate to your current design? So for example, designers all the time will be like, oh, I need to make this flow really easy, so I'm going to move this button over here, or I'm going to hide that, and it'll really be important for this specific feature. But you might forget, well, that actually was a really highly used feature in your application, so go back to your metrics and see what are the repercussions of that design concept you've put out there. User tests and feedback. When you're putting these concepts out, use whatever tools are available. I've done everything from cut and paste paper prototyping, where I actually use Balsamiq, so that's the wireframe tool. Created the wireframes, printed them out, cut them out, and then started show and telling teammates and colleagues, and that's a really cool use. All the way to, sorry to name drop again, but usertesting.com. We're huge users of usertesting.com. That we're like our testimonials on the front page. We use it so much. I don't know how much we give them, but we love the product because it allows us to really see people use, especially our mobile products. They have really great mobile testing where if you are designing a mobile app, you can have somebody sitting there with some archaic Android phone with like hardware keyboard that you've never seen, and you'd all of a sudden realize, oh yeah, people are using these phones. And so it really kind of breaks you out of the bubble that you're in, and you get to see people use your product. Creating demos is really important for your partners. We've actually kind of, even if you don't have, like we're a little bit closer with, let's say, Google, for example, we were able to kind of shoot them some ideas that we're doing and say, hey, this is what we're thinking, because we're a little bit of a bigger developer on the platform now. But you can still follow people on Google+, or if it was, I don't know about Apple necessarily, but you can, if you have partners like that, you can still get to them and get your designs in front of them and somehow get feedback to kind of gauge whether that direction you're going in is going to be beneficial for them and for you, and you can kind of work to that. And then when you're putting these things together, you got to get them in front of your whole team, especially your engineers, to find out what the technical complexity is of the designs you're proposing and what the estimates would be, because you might have a really great concept, but if it can't be done within that time frame, you should probably not continue to iterate on that. So I have kind of an example of where you can put design concepts out that might be really good for your business, but not so great for your users or partners and take a lot of time. So you kind of have this kind of like video game analysis where you have the strengths for the different players and see kind of how the concept measures up. So let's look at the example that I have here. So we're on this kind of premium thread that we're working on at Evernote. And we're trying all these different ways to communicate to you why you should use or subscribe for Evernote Premium. And one example was if you do have a really slow connection, you have a lot of images in your note, it may take a while to be able to access that note. What if you're in the airport and you have really important documents you've taken a photo of and you need to access that right away? Well, it's really good to take your notes offline, and our premium service allows you to have offline access. So one idea that was thrown around in the team was, there was actually an initial requirement, was if we detect a slow connection, we'll actually throw up a dialog and say, hey, we sense a slow connection. Why don't you upgrade to premium? Great for business because we've got it in front of all our users, and they know about premium, they're able to tap through. But that's not really great for the user experience. And so in the short term, it may actually lead to some conversions, but we were trying to figure out how can we get the green bars on all the different players to be higher. So another concept we tried out was an inline message. So rather than interrupt the user, while the note is loading over here, we actually have this message appear that says, hey, your note's loading slow. Why don't you, you could upgrade to premium to take your notes offline. But if that note loads, it goes right over top of that, and you're not really interrupted. So finding things faster was one of those user goals, but our goal was premium. Trying to get both of those things met was the ultimate goal. And so we ended up killing this concept going with that. On the other end, you have something that's really great for a user, but not so great for business. We have a lot of really great free users that don't even know we have a premium service because we don't communicate to them too much about it in the past. So now we're trying to push that a little bit more. And we're trying to see how can we get something about premium on our homepage. This is the homepage for Evernote for Android. And our team was just like violently against it. We're like, no, putting a premium link on the front page of our app is ridiculous, right? That's horrible for users. I wouldn't want that. I quit. It was so ridiculous. But that's not the only goal. We need to kind of bring together both the user needs and the business needs. And so we actually ended up with this. We do have a Go Premium link right above our other items, but we didn't make it so bold and in your face. We didn't make it like an advertisement. And we actually, when you tap on and go see your the kind of premium page, you have this ability to hide that on your home screen. And we actually had this implemented on other platforms, and it increased like 3 or 4x our conversions on premium. So it was a really important thing for business. And we tried to have that kind of balancing act of making it still a good experience for users. So we ended up killing the initial concept, which was, hell no, we're not putting premium on our homepage, to going with a slightly different concept. This is a partner one. So this is back to Gus. So we actually have carriers that offer Evernote Premium to somebody that buys a device on their network, and they get it for a year. And this is actually an example of Docomo, which is in Japan. And you have to kind of explicitly activate the premium. So what they really wanted was this overlay that just says activate and is really kind of blocking the user. And we had to say, well, that's great for the partner, that's great, potentially for the business, but is that a really good experience for the user? So we tried to kill that concept and work on other iterations. And another potential concept was at least giving them the option to not show again, or maybe they're just, again, they need to find something right away. So like, I'm interested, but remind me later, and that's kind of another option. So really, this craft of picking and killing concepts is really hard to give you a defined process, but it's a matter of keeping all the players kind of in your mind and going through and saying, how is this going to affect their experience and affect the goals? So that gets you down from narrowing all your concepts to one final direction. So let's discuss. Any questions? Yeah.
Hey, I'm a huge Evernote user. I'm actually using it to take notes right now. In regards to your in-app registration flow, how did you decide on those 4 or 5 personas you have, like the foodie, the traveler? Because I look at those. I don't use Evernote for any of those things. I use it for notes, web clipper.
Yep.
But so how did you decide on those 4 or 5 personas in the registration flow?
So that's an interesting thing. That was actually a separate project that we had. We had an intern that had come on board, and we had thoroughly tested that. That was actually a few months of iterations. And we actually use a really great tool called proto.io. If you're not a developer and you're just a product manager or a designer, and you can actually use that to create really, really rich prototypes and fairly quickly. So I highly recommend that. And we use proto.io to actually almost have the same experience on prototype before it was built. And we tested through usertesting.com, where they actually would be using our prototype. And we had videos of it. And we went through multiple iterations to get the copy right, the pictures right, and all tests pointed towards it being a great implementation. We actually implemented that across our different applications on iPhone, on Android, even went to our desktop. But only now are we seeing the results of that wasn't actually as high as we had really anticipated. So it was an interesting thing where all our user testing had shown that this is going to be great, and yet it actually didn't fully move the needle as much. So we're still actually iterating on that first experience, because there are some times where it doesn't explicitly speak to you. And that's why in one of the initial screens you saw, there was just a one-step registration. We literally have a panel that comes up that says, we detect your email on the device, and we say, hey, would you like to start right away? and kind of continue the onboarding process once you've kind of are in the app and are able to play around, versus giving you a bunch of information up front, and hopefully you remember it after you sign up and go in.
When I was working in the personal productivity space, some of our users suggested we work with Evernote because they mentioned they use this thing called the secret weapon methodology. And when we looked at it, it was basically a ton of videos on how to use Evernote to manage all of your to-dos in your life and email. It seemed like it was something that existed outside of Evernote. So I was just wondering, are these like really strong use cases something that you grow organically, or that you cultivate, or that you actually go into?
So you're referring to product videos that are on our website that are explaining the product, or what were you?
It's a completely different website that is basically marketing Evernote as a means of solving the getting things done.
Oh, this is an independent website. Okay. And what was the question? Sorry.
So is this something, or are these use cases things that you just let happen organically, or do you go out and look for them and then try to build them?
So there are some use cases that get really, really strong that we'll build a whole product around. So Evernote's expanded beyond just the core product service of note-taking to there's Evernote Food, there's Evernote Hello. And these are more experimental products where we've taken a user need that's been so strong, but that would kind of make the application too complex or would make other users very unhappy, that we actually have a separate product called Evernote Food for those who all they do is just take pictures of food and want to remember it and then have a beautiful experience. But a lot of people love our free-form note content, ability just to do anything you want in a blank canvas of a note. And so having a more rigid, photocentric note would have been a not very good experience for the overall app. So we've actually taken that off and built a whole new product around. Other use cases well, GTD has always been a challenging one because we don't want to design an application for GTD users. And we try as much as possible not to, because that's just not, that is still a very kind of narrow use case. And we want to help people get things done, but not necessarily build a product that kind of codifies that specific process.
Yeah, I think even before Food and Hello and these other apps, I feel like Evernote has been amazingly an exception to the conventional wisdom that as a startup in your early days, you do something specific and you do it really well. And I've kind of found what you've said, which is that people use it in a lot of different ways. And I'm wondering how you guys sort of decided that either that was okay or that that's something that you really wanted to leverage as a design process, where you sort of said, we're not going to just say it does this one thing narrowly really well. We're actually going to enable and support a lot of different use cases or allow for a general platform type of a design. Yeah,
well, supporting a lot of different use cases is it's challenging and it's exciting in the fact that it's a challenge, but it's not fun because it's a lot to think about, and sometimes we wish we could just really narrowly focus on one specific use case, but we need to have beautiful photos in there, just like a publishing application. But we need to have advanced editing, like you're using a Word doc. And we have these two sort of like browsing and finding and just all over the place in one application. It makes it very challenging. And when you do have when we've now grown to have enough users to come out and complain, and since we are heavily distributed through app stores, you can actually be held hostage by one-star ratings, which is kind of interesting. So you have a very small group of users that can actually visibly decrease the sort of value of your product by rating you very low. So we have to be this is a very fine balancing act in making sure we do satisfy those vocal users, but not sacrifice the needs of the broader user base. Yeah, I think I'm out of time. I think we're on the panel now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a